It is time to code. Make sure you pay attention. Thank you.
We've talked about HTML and CSS. We have not talked about good old JavaScript yet. We just did kind of briefly. Now, I'm going to explain what these three things do, how they work together, and then we'll review what we've done. So HTML, hypertext markup language, because it's hypertext and we're marking up the language. So we're taking regular language and we're marking it up with all sorts of stuff we want to happen to it. So I like to think of it like this. I like to think of HTML as like the bones. So think of some sort of online game where there's buttons and moving objects, in this case a bunch of rectangles. HTML puts those things on the page at a certain location. Notice black and white. Now what CSS will do is we can come back with CSS and we can add style. Don't know what kind of game this is, but whatever. So HTML put everything on the page, CSS styled everything on the page and made it look pretty, and what JSS will do in the future when we learn about it is we'll animate these things and make these things move and change as we click buttons and move our mouse and press keys on the keyboard. So again, sets up the basic layout, makes everything pretty with the cascading style sheets. So these are the styling. This is animation. Boom! All right, so example of what that will look like is right here.
So always start out with the doc type, so the browser knows what the heck it's reading and knows what to do. Then our first tag is the HTML, and all the way at the bottom we end the HTML. Remember, ending is with the forward slash. So we have the start tag of HTML, the end tag, and everything else is going to go in between. So after that, we have our head tags, and inside the head we have our title, which will display in the tab at the top of the web page. And also inside the head, we have our start and end tag for style, and this is where all of our pretty CSS code goes. So after the head, so we close the style, close the head, then we have our body, and this is where all your content is going to go. So you're going to have all your paragraphs, information, and images, and links, and everything down here.
Inside the head, we have our title and the style. JavaScript will also be joining CSS inside the head later on. So a couple of things. Obviously, you should know all the basics. So for example, a paragraph is the P tag, and its end is /P. We have a line break. It's a weird one. It's just a BR. There is no end tag. We're just breaking a line. Now we have the all-important div tags, which put everything in a group so we can style a bunch of things at once. We also have the specialties like image. So we put the image src and then the URL, and that will put an image on the page. And a link to a website is, we have our A for anchor, the href, the URL, then we put whatever we want the link to say, like link, and then we close the anchor tag.
Hey man, hey dude, you forgot the internal link. You showed us how to do the external link with the anchor and the href, but you forgot the internal link, man. What are you thinking, dude? Okay. So, anyway, here's how you do it.
All right, for an internal link, sorry, I forgot that, as my friend reminded me there, is you would somewhere up at the top of the page, or wherever you'd like actually, inside of one of your tags, you would put the same thing for a regular link, an anchor with what you want the link to say, but the href, instead of being a URL like a regular external link, will have a hashtag link or hashtag ID, whatever the name of your ID is. And what that will do is we'll make this part clickable. So I put click to go to the bottom. So if the user clicks that, it will bring them down the page to the ID that said link. So down here I made a paragraph and I called it ID. I'm sorry, I set the ID equal to link. So up here, the href is hashtag link. So hashtags are for IDs. So when I click this, it will bring me to that ID, the link. So it was down here. Now remember, I could have called this ID down here Brandon, but up here I would have had to put hashtag Brandon. So these are probably tags that you've used the most. You've also probably used H1 tags a lot, maybe emphasis tags, so to make things have emphasis in your text, or maybe strong tag, or any other ones that you've looked up. Now, inside of our CSS, we can do special things like make IDs and classes. So I can give any of these tags an ID or a class, and then I can style them up in the CSS with a hashtag, then the ID, whatever I named it, and then a period and the class, whatever I named it. And we can put all of our rules inside an open and close curly bracket. So we can change the color of the text. Don't forget your semicolon at the end. We could change the background color. Again, don't forget we have colons here after our CSS selector and then a semicolon at the end. So we can write our colors like this, or we can write it in RGB or hexadecimal, which you guys have the websites for to check that.
Hey dude, you forgot position. You can do like absolute or position relative. Personally, I prefer absolute because I can just like put stuff wherever I want it on the page, you know? So you might want to remember that too.
And so we can do the same thing with classes. Remember, IDs will style one thing. Classes will style anything with the class name. So we can do multiple things with a class, like buttons. Those are fun, right?
What about the buttons?
Almost forgot about the buttons. Oh my goodness. Okay, so buttons we can put inside a div tag because we want to divide them from everything else, so we can put them, move them around on the page with our absolute or relative positioning. So you have some buttons in there. I just labeled them button 1 and 2. And then I made an ID called nav, like these would be the navigation buttons, like go to page 1 or go to page 2. Now up in the CSS part of our document, I created ID nav because I named it nav down here. So hashtag nav, and inside the curly brackets or braces, I put my CSS code. Now remember, display block puts buttons vertically. So if you leave this display block out, it will put the buttons horizontally. If you want them vertical, you put display block. Now remember, buttons we can add padding, margin, border, well actually anything you can add these. And border is in the format how big you want it, what type of border you want, and the color you want it. I left these blank because you could do whatever you want here. So that reminds me, we almost forgot our BorPadCon. Margin, border, padding, content. The box model. So everything on your web page, so all these things can be thought of as little boxes, and you can add margins, borders, padding to each of these things to style them however you want. So don't forget that in your CSS. And so what we're going to move on to with all this stuff is creating a nice web page layout so we can eventually put a window on it with JavaScript that will run a game. Pretty cool. So this has been a general overview of a lot of stuff.
yeah, a lot of stuff. And it's not everything. So if I forgot something, that's because I'm rambling on off the top of my head, trying to think of everything we've done so far. But you're welcome to go back in your notes and check stuff out. And you're going to take our unit test on this, so you need to go to Mr. Leclerc, me, in the future. Well, it won't be in the future when you're watching this, it'll be currently. And get your test. This one's going to be paper-based with a Scantron. That way I know you're not cheating. Yeah. So good luck. Before you come up to me and get the test, make sure that you know all of this stuff, but more in depth, and then only come up to me when you are ready. Good luck.